Hello, this is Gary Aldridge with Leveraging You, and our purpose here is to talk to business owners and bring subject matter experts to the table to help you maximize the value of your business. So I bring people in from all different areas of business, whether it's private equity, bankers, insurance people, business brokers, and today we have an expert in sales and marketing, and that's Paul Sparrow. Paul has been a guest of ours before, and we focused on marketing our first time around. So today we're going to focus on sales. Now, what business owner out there does not want to increase their sales? So this is going to should be directly applicable to every business owner, regardless of your industry or your location. So, Paul, thanks for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Paul, you and I know each other a bit, and I've heard your story, but this may be the first time for some of our listeners. Tell us a little bit about you and your journey and how you got to Chief Outsiders.
Yeah, sure. I cut my teeth in the healthcare industry at the ripe old age of 28. Convinced Johnson and Johnson that I really could sell, and they brought me in carrying the bag, calling on OBGYNs all over South Georgia. And in fairly short order, I became a district manager, and then they sent me to Boston with this accent. I was a region business director for the Northeast region with this Southern accent, and then I went into marketing. And since J&J, I've done a number of things. Was with a little startup that became WebMD. That's actually what moved me to Nashville. We purchased a company in Nashville in the claims clearing business, and not to meander throughout my career, but I've been involved in a dozen mergers and acquisitions in the course of my career.
Wow.
I worked for a Fortune 50, that was J&J. Have worked for several emerging growth companies, two startups, one turnaround, and I've even invested and purchased a company with some partners and ended up running that business. So I've got a pretty diverse background that I think really benefits our clients and the folks in our company.
And tell us about what you do today with Chief Outsiders.
So I'm a managing partner with Chief Outsiders. Our firm, we're the largest firm in the country that provides outsourced chief marketing officers and outsourced chief sales officers. We typically get hired for a period. It's not like it's an evergreen type of thing. Typical engagements probably about 6 months, but we work with clients who need their revenue engine to accelerate growth. They often are experiencing pain, either right in their face kind of pain, or the fear of the pain coming down the road if they don't make some changes.
I thought about this after we spoke last time. I may have a lead for you, so remind me of that when we get off of here, and I'll talk with you about that.
I will not let you forget that one, my friend.
Yeah. Well, that's why I mentioned it now, so I don't, because I thought about it afterward and then I obviously forgot. So I know now that I've told you, you won't let me forget. So that's the point. So tell me, we talked about this a little bit before we turned live, but I think about how sales used to be back in the day, whatever that was. How are sales different today, if at all, post-COVID? How has this whole sales process changed?
Yeah, it was changing before COVID, but COVID, I think, has accelerated a lot. The digital age puts all businesses in a position where they're going to get checked out before anyone even raises their hand and says, I'm interested in maybe buying from you. And it wasn't that way 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It just wasn't that way. It was much more relational, right? Why did I do well as a birth control pill salesman at Johnson and Johnson? I built good relationships. I was dependable, steady, but it really had to do with the relationships I built. What's happening now is there's this buyer's journey that your company has to influence before they ever talk to you. So, and that's really more marketing than it is sales. So the symbiotic relationship between sales and marketing has gotten tighter and tighter and tighter through the years. And I think with COVID, it's just accelerated things. You've definitely got to nurture your prospects prior to them even finding you. And the other thing is you have to nurture your clients. You can't just keep clients because you send them a Christmas card every year or a fruitcake or whatever it is that you do. There's a whole lot more to it than just the customer management process. You have to market to them and nurture them as well. And all of that will determine whether or not your sales organization is healthy, assuming that you've got good, solid sales force and a good way of measuring results and executing on sales.
Right. What are some of the, challenges? I mean, I think about me and, marketing me and my services and all that. And this isn't all for a one-on-one session, but, just when I think I've done all this stuff and nothing's working, then I get a random call from somebody out there that says, "Hey, I needed somebody to do what you do." And I had my assistant Google some stuff and they found you. And so this just happened yesterday. So we talked about, talked about it for a while. I had an attorney call me, a couple of weeks ago and said she had done research, found some different business valuation people, called a lot of people. She said, "You were the only one who called me back." So I said, "Well, good." So we're off and running, and doing stuff. So all that, it's like, I'm trying to say this in the right way. All the stuff that you did before with your relationship building is still in place. It's just done differently. It's done digitally. And I think, some people have figured that out and some are still, kind of struggling with it. But it's like building some sort of digital relationship, which is different than, obviously when you drive by and you see someone, you have coffee with them or you take them to lunch, that's an in-person, you get I think you get a closer connection that way. But that's changed, so because everybody else is like pouring into your inbox and all over YouTube and all over Google and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of noise that you got to get over just to get your message out.
Well, you got to be relevant with what you have to say. Look, I don't want to discount the importance of that relational sales situation. I mean, I literally, a fellow member here in C12 in the Low Country in Charleston, we're not in the same forum, but I've known him for years. And he reached out to me a few weeks ago and said, "We've got some sales issues and I think we should be talking to Chief Outsiders." And I said, "Okay." I mean, I just built a relationship with him and I know one of the managers under him. And he and I actually serve on the C12 advisory board here in town. So we've gotten to know each other, and he's, heard me talk a little bit about my business here and there, but there's enough of a relationship for him to go, "I'm going to talk to Paul. I'm not going to talk to anybody else. I want to find out if Chief Outsiders can help us." And we actually had an initial discovery call today. And yeah, there's what they need help with. We can help them with. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he went to our website and checked us out a little bit more before he reached out to me initially.
Sure.
So there's a combination there. But
sure.
To your point, boy, what you have out on the internet speaks volumes about your business. When your website is slow to load, it's not functional, there's no way to ask for more information if you're interested to get more information, that essentially says these guys are clunky. These guys are wooden. They're not going to be good customer service people.
Right.
People will run. They won't even reach out to you and ask you for information, even though they may have found you through SEO or whatever sort of search engine they're using.
Right. Well, now we're post COVID and we're talking about sales. So, I like to talk about stories. So give me a story, if you will, of how somebody reached out to you or vice versa, said, "Hey, I've got a problem in sales. I don't know what all it is, but I want to grow my sales," or whatever that conversation was like. And so what did you guys do? And what was the post Chief Outsider effect?
Yeah. I had a client that I worked with as their fractional CMO, and we actually pivoted the business. We moved from one technology to another technology. There was 95% of their business was in this one technology vertical, and 5% was in the other. And I helped them understand that the opportunity was in the 5%. They needed to shift from the 95 to the 5. Now, it wasn't because I'm a genius. These are really, really smart entrepreneurial guys, and we had a lot of good data that indicated this is the direction to go in. And they dug into the technology and went, "Wow, this is a smart move." They even changed the name of the company to reflect this new vertical that they moved into.
Wow.
So, had a successful fractional CMO experience, good relationship with the founders and the CEO. And he called me, I guess a couple of years transpired, and he called me and he said, I know you have a sales background too, and we've never really sold. We're more which I knew, where they were customer centric. They were reactive. Their market was growing and people were reaching out to them. They had a good digital strategy and people were reaching out to them, but it was this crew of individuals that were just fired up about the business. The company has a wonderful culture. It's one of the richest company cultures that I've been exposed to. People are very empowered there. But the CEO wisely knew we can't grow it this way. We're being reactive. Sometimes we're giving away the farm to help clients that would pay more. And these guys aren't skilled. They don't know how to ask for more business. They don't really know how to qualify. They don't know how to upsell. They're just being order takers and sort of a combo customer service order taker type of thing. And so he said, come on back out. They're out in outside of Dallas. Come on back out and help us. So that's what I did. And where do you start? Whether it's marketing or sales, you start with data. All right, let's take a look at the data. Do you have a CRM? Do you use the CRM? Telltale sign of an unhealthy sales organization is, yeah, we have a CRM. We're not real good about putting information in there. Okay, that's a problem. That's a discipline that you have to change. So long story short, I used the data to help me understand where they were, where the gaps were. I sat down with each member of that team and did one-on-one interviews to figure out sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the CEO had accurately diagnosed things. My job was to make sure he hadn't missed anything. There were a few things he missed along the way, but I was able to confirm for him, yeah, your people like what they do. Matter of fact, they love what they do. They're not sure they want to do what you want them to do, which is sales. And part of it is because they've never sold and they're scared of sales. Salespeople are bad people, they're bad people. And that, they just weren't educated. So it was my job, once figuring all that out, and then put a sales strategy in place. What does our sales engine need to look like as we move forward? And what are the seats on the bus, and what's a description of a person who's going to sit in that seat? And these existing people who we love and we're not going to get rid of, even if they can't sit in that seat, could that be a seat that they might not only enjoy, but thrive in? And so it was my job to help them figure that out and then put the overall program together to move it forward. And man, I loved working with that company. And buddy boy, they've been growing like crazy. Now, I can't just say, oh, it's the Sparrow monkey dust. It's a Sparrow secret sauce. It's a combination of good, motivated people working in a company where they're well treated, but they're logical and they paid attention to the path that I laid out for them. And it was a game changer. I mean, they walked through the door and embraced sales, whereas before nobody really wanted to sell.
We're going through a similar situation with, ironically, a sales organization. We talked about this a little bit before. And they sell services, and they're national, and they're 100% remote. And so we're kind of struggling with that. And as we dive deeper into it, we found out some things that we're going to try to correct. So, in fact, we were on the phone this morning about it, and here I was writing my meeting notes after that and sending it to the CEO after, talking with him. And it's stuff that's really simple, but it's profound, that One is really clarifying the roles of each person on the team, because we have some people that a few that are 100% sales, and you have a hodgepodge of people that kind of sell, but they kind of service kind of thing. And so it's all that ambiguity leads to no sales. That's what that happens. So starting out with really, really clarifying specifically what their roles are, clarifying specifically what their goals are for sales down to per week of what that's supposed to generate. And then once we have that, then we'll back up into their CRM and see what their pipeline, in order to have these sales per week, you've got to have so much in your pipeline. And we'll look at, the sales cycle and the close cycle and the close success rate and all those kind of things. But it's really clarifying their roles, because some people may or may not know that we actually expect them to sell, which is kind of part of the problem. And then not only we expect you to sell, but here's exactly what we want you to sell on a weekly basis. And now, in order to do that, and if I'm making this up, if you need to sell 10 per week and you've got a close rate of 10%, you got to have 100 in your pipeline. And I'm just making those up just to make a point. And so we'll not just review their sales weekly, but actually their pipeline weekly, to say, hey, you don't have enough in your pipeline to get enough out at the end of the funnel. So we'll be working on that. Here we are mid-December. That's to be in place January 1st. And I don't know if I would like to take some of the credit or the blame for pushing that out there, but that's about to happen, for better, for worse. So we're going to see what happens with it. Well, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah. Well, my commentary there is two things. One, metrics don't lie. So tracking what their productivity is extremely important. The other piece is, it's sort of that symbiotic relationship between marketing and sales that I talked to you about. A good marketing engine is going to hand what we call in the business MQLs, marketing qualified leads, to the sales organization. Now, the sales organization has to take those leads and determine which of those are SQLs, sales qualified leads. 100% of MQLs will not pass and be graded as an SQL. It's right. Just not that sort of thing. So without MQLs, you've got a sales organization that's essentially doing relationship sales, and they're missing a big part of the engine. So that's one thing. The other is, look, you can do a really good job with all of that. You got the metrics in place, you're tracking, you got the goals, and you know what the pipeline looks like, a healthy pipeline versus an unhealthy, good level of MQLs and SQLs. But I'll tell you what, if you do not have the proper scripting, if you don't have the right messaging, if you're missing an effective value proposition in both your outbound communication and in your inbound communication, it won't matter. It will not matter. And many organizations, small, mid-sized businesses particularly, don't do a good job of putting muscle memory discipline into the messaging component of the engine. You have to be able to give that value proposition pretty efficiently. And if you're a really good salesperson, you understand the different personality types that you're talking with. At J&J, we grew up in a model that's similar to DISC. You're probably familiar with DISC. Mm-hmm. You're talking to a high D, boy, you better get it across real fast. Bang, bang, bang. Right? Super efficient. Give them options. If you're talking to a high I, which is what I am, oh, you can wander around in the ballpark and talk about the color of the grass. That appeals to them. You tailor what you're delivering, but you got to make sure that there's a good, strong value proposition there, or you're going to have a hard time converting those SQLs into a high close rate.
Yeah, I believe that. I remember back in the day getting some sales training and, trying to market myself, getting an appointment, going to a business owner, and just reading his room at first, just to see what that would tell me a lot right there. Just seeing what's on the wall, what's important to him, and then trying to just have a conversation before I walk in the door trying to sell. This happens to me on LinkedIn almost daily. Somebody wants to connect, and I don't connect with everybody on there. I'll see if we have any mutual contacts, or if there's any reason for us to connect. I don't just connect with everybody. And the first thing coming out is to try to start selling me on something, and then I'll just delete them.
I get them all the time.
And just delete them.
Yeah, I get the unsolicited emails. I get the the LinkedIn sort of thing, and I love building relationships. I mean, that to me, that's the fun. That's the life
Yeah.
of what I do, and I really enjoy that. But I only have so much bandwidth, Gary. So there's some relationships that are not going to be real profitable, real beneficial. And I get a lot of that on LinkedIn. I think the world is probably very, very accustomed to, I've got something to solve world hunger and Chief Outsiders needs it. Will you talk to me? Not interested. Thank you.
And I'll know that it's some bot or whatever it is, whatever you call it, that because instead of saying, "Hey Gary" or "Hello Gary," it'll have my first name and my middle initial. Like nobody calls me Gary K. They don't call you Paul S. or whatever your middle name it starts with. They call you Paul. So like, okay, well, right out of the gate, I know you're not even looking at my profile. You don't know me at all. I mean, who would do that? But I get those frequently. I haven't done that, thankfully. I haven't done that. I'll connect with people, but I don't spend a lot of time on it.
You asked me about how selling has changed since COVID, and that's a big part of it. There is an entire industry now circulating around LinkedIn, reaching out to guys like you and me and business owners and saying, we can help you tap into the power of LinkedIn to up your qualified prospect list. It's a big industry, and some people charge lots of money to do it. There wasn't near as much of that going on pre-COVID. It's probably tenfold to what it was prior to that. And a lot of them are not effective at what they do. There are far fewer that are effective at making that happen.
They're doing what I call dialing for dollars. Some bot will contact 1,000 people and they'll connect with 20 and they'll sell 5 and they'll keep going. They don't care about anything else. It's just generating. And back in the day, literally, before the internet, talking about my age, some investment advisors really just had a team of people just dialing for dollars. Just get a warm body on the line and try to set up a meeting with the closer, who would come in and say, yeah, I can help you. You need to do this. And they may not even ask them what their issues are. They just start selling right out of the gate. But because they're closing enough deals, they're making enough money, so you can't tell them any different. I'm not going to sell that way. I don't sell that way. Mine is because when I'm working with people, business owners, I mean, I've got to earn their trust. The first thing I got to do right out of the gate is I got to earn their trust. And, and I'll try to, first of all, I'll just ask questions and actually listen, and ask more and just try to, before I'm trying to sell anything, because a lot of them will say, well, what are you going to do? So, well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, I'm going to listen, I'm going to observe. And then at some point, when I think I've found something of value, then I'll share that with you. But, and I love it when, it happens when somebody says, you know what, Gary, I really trust you. That tells me a lot. It means a lot to me because I've earned that. Because maybe somebody else has come along and maybe did not earn that trust or earn their distrust, because once you get the distrust, you can't get it back.
That's right. Yeah. People buy from people that they like and people that they trust, and when you talk about that interaction with that business owner, for my 2 cents, the 2 most important questions you can ask after, I always ask, what would you like to get out of this discussion? I want to make sure they have an interest in this or whatever it may be. But after that, it's A, what's your vision for your business?
Yeah.
Now where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Some people don't think in those boxes. And so when you force them into that box, they have to, I don't know, I hadn't thought about 3 years. Let me make up a number. So you've already walked off the edge of the cliff and you're going into a danger zone. It's a simple question. What is your vision for your business? And let them tell you whatever it is, solve world hunger, triple in revenue, high EBITDA, whatever it may be. Okay.
Yeah.
So after they put that out, then the follow-up question is equally important. What is preventing you from achieving that today? And if the answer is nothing, we're doing great. Well, we probably can't help you.
Yeah.
Everything's going great.
That's
Okay?
right.
But typically, they'll say, here's what we're not doing well, whether it's a marketing or it's a sales or a combination of the two. And then you can sort of begin to dissect that and figure out what's going on, where those gaps are, and whether or not we can help them.
Another question I like to ask them sometimes is what keeps you up at night? What do you worry about? What are your pain points? And any business owner, I think, is going to have something. I mean, I wake up in the middle of the night every night. First thing in my brain is something going on in business. Did I email this one? Did I return that one? Did I do this? Did I do that? What have I got to do tomorrow? And then I'm like, Carrie, go back to sleep. You got to calm that down. But and a lot of times I don't even know what the pain points are. I found that out. So that's an opportunity for me to try to, again, ask and listen, observe, and if I can get in the office or even on a group call, asking the people around them, because the owner may not know what's going on in the minds of the people around them, because they don't want to tell the owner that because they're afraid.
Well, it's like being a doctor. There was a time years ago when I had a pain in my back, and the muscles in my forearms were just jumping around. I mean, I had so much pain I couldn't stand up and sing at church. And I went to the doctor. Now, he didn't just look at it and go, "Oh, well, here's your problem." He had to diagnose what was going on, and there was a series of questions and tests and all to figure it out. Eventually, figured out I had a problem between two cervical spots in my neck, and I had a bunch of inflammation and so forth. And then they diagnosed that, and then we went to a course of therapy. But you've got to ask questions. Good doctors go, okay, so the muscles in your arms are jumping around. Tell me about the pain. Where is the pain? When did it start? How did it start? Right? There's this whole process of trying to figure it out before they can say, "Hey, or take this, and you'll get better."
Yeah. What are some things you go into an organization and you're focused on? We're talking about sales today. What are some things that you see that are common red flags that are opportunities for improvement in the sales organization?
Yeah. All businesses have an entrepreneurial start. There was an entrepreneur who had an idea, and they started the business, and he or she drove that business forward. Typically, that entrepreneur is salesperson number one. They're the authoritative expert. They build relationships. They go out. They do everything they can to drive business. And there comes a point where that won't scale well. And so they'll hire salespeople. Okay. Then they get some salespeople. They teach them what they do, and the salespeople go out, and they may be successful at that. But there's typically a time, I call it the cross the chasm time, when that model will not continue to work. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten is not true in business. You'll get less and less. And let's hire 10 more salespeople because we need to get another $10 million in revenue, and we average $1 million per person. Boots on the ground, just throwing boots on the ground will not get you what you need. All right. And I often see that, well, we need more salespeople. It's not that simple. You have to diagnose what are we good at. And it's similar to the example I gave you earlier. What are we good at? What are we not good at? Where are our inefficiencies? How can we get better? You might could just stick with the sales organization you have and give them better tools give them better resources and training, and get more productivity out of them. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, that business owner was about to hire 10 new salespeople and throw them against the wall. Probably not a good investment.
We're doing just that instead of adding more salespeople. This is the same client I mentioned earlier. So like, let's work with the team that we have and make sure that we've optimized. Let's manage what we have now better before we just throw more dollars at more bodies, because otherwise we'll just be managing more bodies poorly, you know. Yeah. And so let's make sure that we're optimizing the team that we have, clarify their roles and responsibilities, clarify their targets on a weekly basis, their pipeline on a weekly basis. Let's do that for 30 days. That's what we're going to do for January. At the end of January, we're going to know a lot more than what we know right now, because all this is in flux, like right now, like right in the 2 weeks. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen by the end of January. I believe very firmly that it's going to be better. I just don't know how much better, you know. And some people will make it and survive and thrive, and there may be some that don't. I don't know, but you know, sales is something that's easy to measure. You either sold or you didn't. You know, you got the revenue or the gross profit, or you don't. So we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens with it. But we're also trying to do it in a way where we set people up to win and set people up to be successful, not set them up to fail. Be curious to see what happens with that.
Well, you have to understand what they're doing. So the data doesn't lie, but the data doesn't always explain things to the fullest. I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was working at a turnaround, and we had a call center. We were in the online education space, and we had a call center. And one of the nicest things we had was a sort of soft phone system that I could, in my office, I could pick up the headphones, hit a button, and listen to anybody on the floor selling at any time. And so I could just take an assessment of how effective that person was in a given situation. My sales managers would do it. And then we go, so we're deeper in that. So the data might say, Gary's not getting the same level of sales that Paul is getting. And you look at the data and you go, well, we're going to have to get rid of Gary. Well, hang on. Diagnose it. What's Gary doing in those sales calls? Is he scripting properly? Is he following the script? Is he taking advantage of what he's gotten to know about that client or that prospect, and utilizing that in a relational, leveraging that relationship? Mm-hmm. There are all kinds of questions that you have to ask. So data is really important, but you can't just be robotic with the data. You right. kind of have to walk the square and really understand what's going on.
Well, coaching has a lot to do with that. I'm thinking about Sandy Koufax as an example. When this is long before my time, but I love nostalgia, and so I listened to him. He was a real hard throwing pitcher, but he had poor control, and they tried him up in the bigs, and he couldn't make it, and they put him back down. Somewhere, somebody along the way, some pitching coach got with him and said, you know, maybe not throw quite as hard, take just a little bit off. And once he found that rhythm and found that location, he was like one of the most dominant pitchers in Major League history over a 5-year period. And I think he retired early, maybe around 30-ish. I don't know that exactly. But the point of it was he got the right coaching to help correct what he was doing. He had the tools. He just needed somebody to kind of help shape him a little bit, which is what coaching is all about, which is why you're here and why I'm here as well. Any last minute tidbits of wisdom that you could share with our business owners? So, you know, on the sales perspective, anything that they could walk away and go like, wow, I'm really glad I listened to that today. No pressure.
I'll tell you a piece of trivia, then I'll try and tackle it. My high school baseball coach pitched a one-hitter against Sandy Koufax and lost.
Wow.
Bobby Henley. It's in the record books. Yeah, one-hitter. At any rate, words of wisdom for any business owner that would help them from a sales standpoint. That's a really good question, and it's a complex one because it's not a one size fits all. Businesses run differently from one another, and while they have similarities, you really have to get in and understand the complexities of that sales engine. Okay.
Yeah.
Probably the best advice that I could give business owners today is this: don't take your clients for granted. You know, we're so preoccupied with going out and getting new clients that we often put all of our efforts behind getting new clients, and we leave the existing clients in the hands of the customer representative. Now, that's not a bad person to leave them in the hands of, but customer representatives, unless they've been trained on how to hunt, they're typically more relational farmers.
Mm-hmm.
So you either have to teach them how to do that, or you need a mechanism in your sales engine that allows you to have regular conversations with your clients, because they're who's the best client, who's the best target to sell products or services to? It's a happy client.
That's right.
Now, and I'm not saying sell for the sake of selling. You have to understand their business and what their needs are, but most businesses have multiple products and services.
Right.
And often you get a client because they're interested in a product or a service. So the nurturing of those existing clients can be just a pot full of gold if you pay attention to it. So don't take your clients for granted, which sounds dumb because every business owner, we don't take our clients for granted. Okay, just make sure you have an active plan for extending the life of the lifetime value of that client, and look for opportunities to bring them more products and services that'll make a difference in their business.
Years ago, I worked with a restaurant company. I was their CFO, and I was asking them about what they did for sales and marketing, for a restaurant company. And what he said was very similar to what you just said. And he said, we take care of the butts in the seats, meaning that we take care of the people that are in here, then they'll keep coming back, and then they'll tell other people, and they'll come. And it's a long, slow burn. And we live in a microwave society, right, where we want it right now. But that building taking care of existing clients over and over and over again, and then it grows. You can cross sell to those existing clients. They'll tell other people, be testimonials, referrals, and all that kind of thing. I like that wisdom. So now I'm going to go back to all my clients and previous clients and go back and try to nurture those relationships. Paul, I really appreciate you coming, both before on marketing and today on sales. I learned a lot. I know things that I can do better, both from a marketing standpoint and a sales standpoint, which I will implement because of you. Thank you very much. I do have a lead for you and a prospect, and I'll follow up with that so we get off of here. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Gary. Thanks for having me again.